Hello and welcome back to Talk About Strange. It's Friday. I hope you guys are gearing up for a wonderful weekend. I'm going to try to get 2 stories out tonight. If I can get things going here. I don't have any special updates. I already did one story. As you can see, I got my new glasses on. I'm working with them. I guess my eyes have to adjust a little bit. It's still wonky. I don't know why. They tell me that's normal with new glasses, but you know what? I like I said in the last video, I don't understand how it is. You go to the eye doctor, they say, is this better, this better, this better, this better? And you say, wow, yeah, I can see, that's great. And then you get your glasses and you can't see, and they tell you, oh, that's normal, your eyes have to adjust. Like, how come they don't have to adjust when you're there, right? Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to go on about that. Let's get on to the story. This is a really cool Bigfoot story, encounter. Or is it a bear? We'll see. Let's read the story. Alrighty. This is from Trey. I got this at 1:35 in the morning. Bigfoot encounter decades ago in Harford County, Maryland, near the Susquehanna River. Hartford. All right, this is from Trey. It's a Bigfoot encounter decades ago in Hartford County, Maryland, near Susquehanna River. This is not my encounter story, but you asked me to send it in, so here it is. It comes from a hunting buddy of mine. It happened several decades ago. He told the story many times, but always said he encountered a bear. Now, bear sightings rarely happen in this part of Maryland, but a bear comes wandering east from the mountains on rare occasions until it's captured and moved back to western Maryland. But even so, few believed that this bear sighting because it was so rare in this far east area, especially back long before the bears made a comeback in Maryland. So what did Bigfoot change to a bear story? It went like this. He was hunting along a big creek with wide floodplains that drained into the Susquehanna River about a mile or so downstream. The huge river had almost vertical sides to it, all from the snowmelt from the New York. This huge river had cut almost vertical sides to it as all the snow melt from New York south to the Chesapeake Bay drained down in it. And the glacier melt at the end of the last glacier period made those huge floods look minor by comparison. So there are hundreds of feet of near vertical terrain with thick laurel at the top and covered in pawpaw everywhere with green briar thickets. It's basically so nasty that nobody ever tried to develop it. It made it a great place for huge bucks to seek refuge when the hunting pressure in the nearby farmland, broken by wooden tracks and thick bottom land, got high. So he was hunting in a wide part of the floodplain around the creek with large wooded area to the south and a more thick, bushy terrain bordering the farmland on the north side. The floodplain was a mix of thick brush and more open, wide grasses. He was in what he thought would be a funnel point where the thick brush met a large grassy clearing in the bottom. The idea was the bucks would stick to the bushy cover in the north as they went through. So he had sneak in from the farmland to the north and set up with his bow over an hour before sun came up. Sitting and listening for any sign of deer, partway up the steep but short hill before the land flattened out to elevate for the farmland, the wind was in his face as he planned and blowing his scent up the hill towards the farmland. Everything was perfect. After the sun was up for a time but still behind the big ridge of the south, he saw some deer going up the far slope along the floodplain. He thought maybe a huge buck had pushed them out, so his senses were alert. Then some more deer, including a buck, ran by him heading downstream before going up the hill between them on the farm field and to the north. Now he thought maybe even bigger buck had pushed them out and got really focused on what was upstream in that thick brush. But then everything went quiet. Not a bird chirping, no insects, not even the frogs that had just started getting warmed up enough to start croaking at the bottom. When he was thinking dogs or maybe another small predator could be about to come out. But then he saw it. He always said it was a bear and caught a lot of grief from those who didn't believe a bear would be anywhere near where he was. But when he was much older, several decades later, he didn't care what people thought anymore. He confided in me that it was actually a Bigfoot. And despite him having not moved a muscle for 5 minutes, it looked at him as soon as he noticed it. like it could feel his gaze. He knew it had him made. Well, needless to say, that it had him a bit concerned. He had no idea what to expect. The Bigfoot stood and stared at him for about 15 minutes, and he said he could feel it staring physically through his body as his hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Then the Bigfoot walked downstream across his side to the grassy clearing, which he had made sure was an easy bow range. Even part of the far side of the clearing was within 50 yards. The Bigfoot walked up within 10 yards of him while staring at him the whole time, just like he had set up for a huge buck crossing his side of the grass clearing. It stopped at the closest point and stared at him, sizing him up in his ground blind, hid just up in the hill from the Bigfoot. It looked at him for what he said seemed like an hour, but it was probably more like a minute or two. Then it just walked downstream towards the extremely steep terrain along the Susquehanna River about a mile away. There was no doubt his territory and quickly was out of sight. My friend sat there for a few minutes trying to decide what to do. His original story said he decided the bear had spooked all the deer, so he figured he would leave the ground blind behind, overlooking the bottom, and hunt closer to the edge of the farm field. He said it was almost time to leave, so he just still hunted out and watched the field for a few minutes before going back to his truck. Then he left for work and decided that he should tell everybody he just ran into a bear rather than a Bigfoot. With as hard as it was for people to believe it was a bear, which should have been believable since I'd seen a bear in that area before, and he had even had one claim a doe I had shot that I left overnight because the ridge was a big laurel thicket with huckleberries growing everywhere, and I knew if I waited till morning, it wouldn't be far from my tree. It didn't take long for me to find that doe that morning, but it had been dragged into the laurel thicket from where it had obviously died, and was buried in leaves and a few branches with teeth marks in it. It was obviously a bear that claimed my deer, and I wasn't about to dispute the claim. I could shoot another one real fast if I wanted to. Anyway, my friend knew that with how few people believed he saw a bear, not saying it was a Bigfoot was definitely the right decision. But some 30 years later or so, we were sitting eating some freshly killed venison backstrap that he had grilled up and drinking some bourbon on the rocks. He gave me a real serious look and he said, "I've never told anyone this before, but I know I can trust you to keep a secret, and I've been dying to tell somebody for decades, but I knew better than to do so. I just said you know you can trust me and it won't go any further if you don't want it to." He acknowledged that and said that's why he chose to confide in me. Excuse me. Then he said, "Do you remember that bear went by me in that floodplain that I used to hunt?" I said that I did. He said, "Well," and then he took a long drink of his whiskey before saying it was actually a Bigfoot. He said the entire story he had always told was true, but the species was changed to protect him from anyone thinking it, and to protect him from everyone that would no doubt think he was crazy. I just told him that I believe him, especially because it was so close to you. Probably could have spit on it if you wanted to, and you saw it such a long time. Then we went back to eating our delicious meat. Well, I just thought about all the things I saw and heard hunting the edge of that steep drop into the Susquehanna River a mile downstream on the property that I had exclusive hunting rights to. I never saw a Bigfoot track or smelled anything. I didn't think I knew what was there. But I heard some things in the dark and saw deer that were spooked out of their mind. When I knew I was the only one that should have been hunting in that huge piece of land, and I had some sole permission to hunt. I have seen deer spooked by hunters and dogs, and these deers would act totally different, much more in fear. Thinking back, I'm sure the Bigfoot always knew exactly where I liked to hunt and when I entered the woods, and why my gut piles were always gone within 20 minutes of dragging my deer out, and then I'd go back to get my hanging tree stand. They never tried to beat me to the kill. They just seemed to like the organ meat and sometimes the stomach contents. Sometimes I would take the heart and liver for my dogs and might share it with them if it smelled good enough when I cooked it for them. But I never took them on any part of that property that I can remember. Maybe the Bigfoot were mentally asking me to leave them the organs and guts for them. It was hard to believe that I always chose to leave them, just in that hunting property. But I didn't always take them when I made a kill on other properties that I hunted. Everything was making sense now. I just wish one had let me see a Bigfoot like my friend was allowed to do. That Bigfoot clearly chose to walk right by him for some reason. Well, my buddy passed away almost 10 years ago, so I am sure he won't mind me sharing this encounter. I hope that you can use it and that everyone enjoys it. If you do, I am a show me kind of guy with a strong understanding of science and nature that keeps an open mind, who would like to become a knower. Maybe one day before I die, I will be lucky enough to see one for myself. Wow. Awesome story, Trey. Man, that's amazing. Your friend, what a pleasure that must have been to see you, and how fearful that must have been for it to come around and almost stalk up on him, but like it didn't even care he was there though. I don't know. That's wild. I mean, how cool would that be to see that? And it knew he was there. It's like, I wonder why. Like, just curious. Maybe just wanted to see what he would do. Did he hunt there a lot? So, like, what a gesture, though. Yeah, I don't know. That's cool. Anyway, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm very sorry to hear about your friend passing. That's too bad. Sounds like a real good buddy. I hope he's not upset with you for sharing the story. You'll find out. This is Talk About Strange. Let us know about that one. If he comes back to tell you, hey, you weren't supposed to share that. No, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Sounds like a beautiful piece of property. I'm curious if you still go out there. But you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Thank you for joining me here today. I will see you again real soon.